This is one of those Stephen King books I've been meaning to read for years, but then I just end up reading a bunch of other books from him instead, so I can't speak to how good it is or how faithful this adaptation is. But I will say that I did see the first part of this movie when it came out, and thought it was alright. The filmmaking was very solid, but the story just didn't manage to grip me and I didn't find it that scary either. However, I did think one of the issues with it was the fact that it dealt with a bunch of kids. And I tend to have issues with movies that try to have adult themes. Try to be scary, try to be serious, but then the protagonists are kids. So when I heard the second part was gonna take place 30 years later, with the kids as adults, and I heard about the cast too, it started to sound a lot more promising. Because I'm particularly a fan of Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy, and I thought the adult part should take care of those more silly feeling aspects of the story. Well, it turns out that, well, I was wrong, because seeing the adults go through the same kind of stuff the kids went through in the first movie actually feels even more silly than seeing the kids go through it. And it actually made a lot more sense for the kids to fight the clown in the way they did than adults. And therein lies the problem with this movie. Well, part of it anyway. I had some serious trouble taking it seriously, and it still wasn't very scary. It's also almost 3 hours long, and it felt pretty long too. Mainly because there are still a lot of characters it has to deal with. And the way it goes about it is dealing with them one at a time. Not always, but a couple of times, which means that takes up a lot of the runtime. Even just establishing 7 different characters in the beginning of the movie takes up like 30 minutes. And I don't really see any way to avoid that, and even if they managed to do it, and they cut down on the runtime and made this feel a lot tighter, there's a very real chance it would have ended up feeling rushed instead. And the individual characters wouldn't have gotten enough screen time to feel distinct or fleshed out. Which I do think this did a fairly good job with. Everyone did get a bit of an arc. But yeah, no matter what they would have done with this, I feel like there's no winning. That's not to say this is a terrible movie though, I definitely didn't hate it. In fact, there were quite a few things I actually liked about it. Like Bill Hader, I thought he was really good, and a lot of his jokes actually landed. I also thoroughly enjoyed the scene transitions they did, usually when they transitioned from the current timeline to flashbacks. Those were done seamlessly, speaking of which, there were also a couple other moments. And I don't really know how to describe them, but it had to do with the editing and sound cues. There was one time they just lined up a music cue perfectly. It really caught me off guard, but it was brilliant. As was another thing too. When they eventually face off with Pennywise, there's another brilliantly timed sound cue as well. Which I guess brings me to Pennywise the Clown, played by Bill Skarsgård. I mean, he did a fantastic job. He was good in the first one, but I feel like he was even better in this. Just a great performance, iconic even. And I would say he's by far the most memorable thing about these movies. And the team designing his look definitely deserves some credit too. And I will say there were some really cool visuals in this overall too. And I mean, some of the special effects were really stunning to be honest. And last but not least was the cameo of a certain somebody. And I'm usually not a fan of cameos, they tend to be a bit cringy. Especially the Stan Lee ones in the Marvel movies just take me out of it every time. But this one I absolutely loved, I thought it was really good. It fit in perfectly and they did a great job with it. It didn't feel shoehorned in and that part would have had to have been played by someone else anyway. So there are definitely things to like about this, but at the end of the day, I don't know, I just didn't find it to be all that gripping or compelling. Which is a shame, but maybe this story just isn't meant to be a great movie adaptation. Because I don't know how they could have done a much better job on a technical level. But anyway, would I recommend this? If you saw the first one and liked it, you might as well watch this one too. But if you didn't, it's absolutely safe to skip. Or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you'd like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.